Hello! I want to thank the new subscribers that I have. The last video I did, which I recommend, this is going to be sort of a series from that video, and it was called To the Wealthy from a Commoner, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking a lot about wealth distribution, but not from a socialist type of perspective. I don't believe in forcing people to give their money. I believe that they should not give it under compulsion, but with a cheerful heart. So that is my message, and that is what I'm trying to do, is bring together people who have resources and people who don't necessarily have the physical resources, but maybe have something great to share. People who have ideas to make a better society. So I was talking about wealth distribution, and one of the things that I mentioned in the other video, which I would recommend that you listen to so you can hear a summary of what this whole discussion is. But one of the things I was talking about was sometimes people are reluctant to give of their wealth when they don't know what kind of return they're going to get, if the people are even going to appreciate it, if it's actually going to help the people. And that's understandable. I mean, I've lived in both situations where I've had more resources and I've had to be careful how to share them. And I've lived in places where I was very needy and didn't want to be lorded over by somebody who had resources. So it's a complicated issue. But I was thinking this morning, after listening to a video, I live in the Asheville area, and I went through the storm, and this video was about the storm. And it really sort of went to this whole issue that I'm talking about. So there was a man who had a pasture, and so he had some wealth. I don't know how much wealth, but he had a pretty big pasture where he could house a lot of people in RVs, but he couldn't just bring the RVs there without permission from the state. So he had to go through all these channels and get the thing set up for a temporary RV site. And he had hundreds of people there, and everybody knew about this place. It's called Haven on the Hill, and they had great reviews, and it was wonderful what they were doing. They were not just, they got the RVs there, they got people into warm homes. They had gas for them every day, propane. They had food for them every day, hot food cooked every day. And all of this was free. And this has been going on for months, but this was a temporary place for them to have a hand up and not a hand out, but to feel totally unconditionally loved for the handout for the time that they needed it, because that was a crisis. I was in a place where I was right near a creek, and you can look at one of my other videos and see how close the water came to us. We were literally half an hour away if the rain kept coming, but thankfully the sun came out of being washed away in our RV. So I understand where these people are coming from. But there was a couple of people there. This is where you find out the fruit of people. They were given all this, and some people weren't appreciative. And when it came time to leave and they hadn't prepared for it, they started to put the blame on the people who were the givers. So there was a couple of women who decided to go to a local newspaper and give a story that did not portray what was really going on there, to make themselves look like victims so that they didn't have to leave. And there were some people that were allowed to stay, a very small amount of people. Maybe he had a certain amount of RV hookups, but everyone else was told and, given the time to prepare. And if they got Social Security checks or disability checks or unemployment checks, or even if they were working, they were able to keep all that money. They didn't have to pay for anything when they were here. Well, these two women didn't want to prepare, and they didn't want to leave, and so they went to this liberal newspaper and slanted their story, and it really put a taint on a beautiful place that did so much for the community. So there's an example of wealth distribution where a man, and I think his wife too, were willing to unconditionally open their place and do what they needed to do and put all the effort into it. And yes, they got donations, but it all went to the people. They went over and above what they had to do to help these people. And then you get these people who just aren't appreciative. And by the way, they were homeless before this. They were living in a tent on the river. So it wasn't even like they lost a house. Some of these people lost houses, and you'd say, well, why don't they have flood insurance? Because some of these places they won't give you flood insurance. So again, back to the not judging people, there's lots of reasons why people end up where they are. But anyway, this was a great example and a great experiment to see what happens when the haves and the have-nots come together and are willing to take a chance on each other and understand each other better and grow together and make a better community. So I think the Haven on a Hill is a perfect example of wealth distribution at its best. And I know God will bless them no matter what kind of attacks come at them. And I'm thankful to them and all the people in this area that have helped out. And I just want to keep talking about, let's do it. Let's do this together. We the people. We don't need to get the government involved, although it would be helpful if they want to be somehow involved. But we are able to do this ourselves. We just need to work together and connect and make a difference. So that's it for today.